Hi, I'd like to talk about a new capability we have here at the MakerBarn, and that is casting metal. So we can take a non-ferrous metal such as aluminum, bronze, brass, copper, and we can cast it into various shapes. This is an example. This just started off as a coaster that was machined on a CNC router out of corian, countertop material. We used it as a pattern, and we cast it. Came out of the sand. This is sand casting. It came out of sand like this, and then when finished out, it looks like this. We have a cork on the bottom, and it makes a nice finished product. There's a lot of things we can make using casting. We have the ability to do sand casting here at the MakerBarn, and we also can do investment or lost wax casting. And this video will cover the sand casting. One thing I like to talk about, though, that's really important, is safety. When we're working with molten metal, molten aluminum, molten brass, whatever, it's very, very hot. It's hard to, when you see it later on in the video, you'll understand a little bit better. If you should have a problem with the crucible, if you should drop the crucible or something like that, hot metal will go everywhere. So there's some safety stuff you have to have. Of course, safety glasses. These are required whenever we're working around the shop stuff. And the safety glasses should have side shields like this. You need to get a pair of gloves. You should supply your own so you have gloves that fit you and work nicely, so you're comfortable with them. You'll need a face shield, because when we're pouring the metal, if it were to splatter, you wouldn't want it to come up on your face. And then we, at the MakerBarn here, we have a leather apron. This is a welder's apron, and you should be wearing this at the time you pour the metal. And you'll see that later on. If it splashes, it'll splash on this apron and not your clothes or your skin is more important. Anyway, that's for the safety items. Let me talk a little bit about what you need to get going on personal items. You'll need your own gloves again. You'll need your own face shield. And you'll need to get a crucible. This crucible is a 3 kilogram crucible. You can buy these on eBay or Amazon. Make note that it has a groove around it. There's some crucibles look somewhat similar to this, but make sure you get the one with the groove, because if you don't have a groove on there, you won't be able to lift it out of the furnace. And it has a little pouring spout right here. These crucibles come in 3 kilograms like this, and they also come in 2 and 1 kilogram. And I've never used one, but I understand they'll work in our oven just fine. But I recommend a 3 kilogram. Also, let me say that they're probably in range of, say, $24 to $30. Of course, there's some people want higher prices, but look for $24 to $30. And you can get them from suppliers here in the US. This is another thing that you want to get. This is an ingot mold, and it's like the crucible. It's made out of graphite, and it's good because you'll fill up your crucible fairly full, and you may not use all that metal. So you want to bring it over here and pour it into this and make a little mold. I don't know if I've got part of one. Here's part of one where I had more material than I needed. The reason I want to do that is because I don't want to leave it in the crucible. If it hardens in the crucible and you heat it again, you take a chance at cracking a crucible. And we'll set up a mold and start getting going here, and what they call ramming up a mold, and you'll see why. All right, this is our project. We're going to make a metal stamp. This could be heated and burnt into wood, or you could just use it with pressure and push it into leather. And let me show you this is a pattern, and this pattern was made on the CNC router, carved on a CNC router. And then this back part was just turned on a lathe. We made a little handle for it, so to speak, back here. And this will be the part that we can put a shaft into to make it into a hot stamp, or put this section, when it molds out, we can put this section in a drill press and stamp it on leather using a drill press. Anyway, so the pattern is the main part. This is the flask. And you can make these, like this is made out of just some plywood. They're very simple. You kind of make them to fit your job. And you can see that there's a couple of tapered wedges, and then these pieces of wood are just pushed up against there and glued and nailed down. So it's very simple. It keeps the top and bottom lined up because we're going to make a two-piece mold here. This, by the way, this is called the drag and this is called the flask. We need talcum powder. The talcum powder is used as a release agent to keep the sand from sticking to our part, or between the cope and drag to keep those from sticking to each other. A little brush and a blower. This helps us control where our sand is going. Little sculpting tool so we can sculpt the sand if we need to. This will be used as part of the riser, which I'll explain in a little while, and a couple little tubes, that sort of thing. Scoop the sand, and this is what I use to tamp it with. Just a piece of wood. This piece of cherry wood is kind of nice, and we'll keep it in with the kit. This is a material called Petrobond. Petrobond is a silica sand that's mixed with oil and some other binders, resins and that sort of thing, and it packs really well. If I grab this, you can see that it forms like a really good beach sand. But this will take high temperatures. We can use this. This could actually be used for cast iron if we had that ability. But it's very high resolution, which you'll see in the results. But anyway, let's get going here, and we'll set up for actually what they call ramming the mold. All right, let's get going. We need to we're going to separate our pattern here, and this part of the pattern is where the font is, where the engraving is. So what I'm going to do is make what we call a parting line between the two halves of the mold. I'm going to put him along this plane. So I'm going to set this down on this white stuff here first. This thing, I'm going to set it upside down. This will become like this after we've got the sand in there. All right? So this is the bottom, which is called the drag. So first we need to put a bit of a release compound on here, which is just the talcum powder. I'm going to put a good bit. The reason is that we wouldn't want this to stick in the sand and then pull the sand away from the mold when we take out the pattern. So I'm going to put plenty of this on here. But the other thing is, of course, if you have too much, you can end up losing some of your detail. So I'll just blow off the excess, and we'll set this down in there real nice. It's right in the middle. It doesn't have to be right in the middle, but that's where it is right now, so that's a good place for it. Now, I can't take lumps of material and put it on top. I'm going to have to sift it first, so to do that I'll use this little pan, and this breaks up the clay into a very fine, almost a fluffy kind of a material. This fluffy material has the ability of going into all the little crevices and detail parts of our mold. I've got this big pan down here to help prevent messes. Generally we do this downstairs in the welding area, but it'd be all right to do it up here. You just have to clean up your mess. All right, there's some right there. You can see it's very light and fluffy. And I'll put it on top of the pattern. And now I'll just press it down with my fingers real careful. The first layer is the most important layer because this is the layer that's going to be picking up all the detail that we want. Okay, I'm going to add a little bit more of the sifted material over the top of that. You don't want your fingernails to get dirty. It's a good idea to wear gloves because this stuff will get underneath your fingernails. And you just kind of push it through the screen. All right, that ought to be good enough to. I'm pushing it down, well, I guess, say about 10 pounds of force or so, just to make sure I get it in all the cracks and stuff. And I want to get it all the way around to the corners too, because once you get it in the corners, then that will hold the piece in place, so it won't slide around. You don't want any movement of the pattern once it gets in here, because that will destroy some of the detail. Now I can use my scoop, and looks like I've more than enough, doesn't it? But this stuff packs down real well. Use my stick. The surface I'm working on now will actually become the bottom of the mold. So I'll be turned upside down. And I'm going to level it off. Not quite there. I'm going to put a little bit more over in this corner. The bottom be nice and smooth. All right, we'll kind of clean up this around here a little bit. And I've got this white card underneath here, so it allows me to lift this thing up without worrying about the pattern falling out. I'll invert it. And there, we got to see it. Here's some of the talc. The pattern's upside down, as you can see. And this will actually become the center of the mold. So the next part we work, this is the drag, so the next part we work on is the cope. All right. Okay, our next step is to make the cope, or the top of the mold. So what I'm going to do is go ahead and put this piece in here. Screw it down. I want to be careful not to move this pattern, remember? And I'll put a little bit of talc on there. This is to allow the two pieces to separate later on. And I'm going to try dusting this post a little bit. It's a little difficult to get it to stick very well to that post, but I think we'd be pretty good. All right. Here's the cope. And again, I think the first layer I'm going to sift the sand to make it fill all the details, because I want the back of the mold to be nice and true to form as well. So let's see. Let me scoop some clay in here, or some Petrobond. There's another kind of material it's called green sand. And green sand is actually more commonly used in Petrobond. Petrobond is a little on the expensive side, and this green sand is just simply made out of a fine sand, a silica sand, with a mixture of bentonite clay, like kitty litter type clay, in there as the binder. And it works pretty good. But a really nice thing about this Petrobond sand is that it picks up detail very well. And it also breathes, so I don't have to put any vents. If you're wondering, if I pour metal in there, where does the air go? The air can actually vent through this material. It saves us a lot of time, especially in our case where we're doing smaller things. It's nice to not to have to make vents for the air to go out. Okay, this is a good start. I'll do it this way so you can see. I need some more. too much Petrobond in here. You need to kind of press it through the wire screen. All right. Pour this in there. All right. Spread this out, kind of even it out, and start pressing it down. Again, I start off with my fingers, then I'll go back to our piece of wood tamper in just a minute. The tighter you tamp this, the harder the mold and more rugged the mold becomes. And it's rather amazing stuff. It's almost like it glues itself into place once you tamp it. It locks itself into place. All right, now. Sand can be used over and over again. When we're done with the casting, some of the sand will be burnt rather black. I throw that away, but a lot of people just go ahead and mix that back in. I think we're not going to use it so much that it would be easier just to throw it away, because the black stuff that's left over has all of the oil burned away from it, all of the resins and things burned away from it. So it kind of, when you mix it back in, it takes away a little bit from the rest. So we'll just discard that little bit. Now the post in the back will actually leave an area in the mold, and that will be where we pour the metal into. That will be what's called our sprue. All right, that's pretty good. Try to level this off nicely. It's amazing how smooth this comes out. I'm going to clean some of this off right now, because now I need to make a riser, or a sprue riser, let's call it. It's to get the detail in the mold, we want a pretty good column of metal being above, pressing that molten metal down into the mold. So one way of doing that, this may actually be good enough. We've got the thickness of this cope up here, which is about 1.5 inches, but we'll do a little bit better. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to make one out of this. Just use this ring of metal, aluminum here, and I'll pack it with sand, with the Petrobond. Probably gonna need a little more. I'll just do it in here. Level it off nicely. Now all I need is a hole to pour the metal through, and I'm going to grab this piece of conduit, and you see what I'm doing here. I'll twist this in. Just take a little plug out of the middle of this. There. It's round, nice round hole. And now what I'll do is I'm going to make a little bit of a funnel. I'll call this the top end. I'm going to carve away a little bit of the petrobond here and try to make a funnel. I want to pack the sand pretty well because I don't want any loose sand falling down inside the mold. You'll see in a minute, I'll pull out that aluminum peg there. Okay, that's pretty solid. I don't think it's going to go anywhere. So I'm real careful like I remove this. It's a little hard to remove, and the reason is that I packed the sand around it pretty tight. Aluminum's smooth, but it actually has a little bit of a texture that the petrobond can pick up. All right. Push some stuff back away. And I want to set this on top of there. And I'm going to put a little petrobond around the outside of it just to kind of make sure it stays in place. It just kind of holds it. You'll see how all this works. So this doesn't have to be particularly pretty, just make sure it holds it nice and solid. Now, let me kind of clean up my mess. Don't want any spare little pieces of sand falling down into the mold. And there we go. There's our cope. Now, if you can see that or not, that's got a hole going all the way through. I'm going to set that down real careful like. Now, what I've got to do is remove the pattern. And fortunately, the way this is made, we can screw this in. Sometimes I'll use, like for the round disc, I use tape. Just take a little tape on there and lift up on the tape to pull it out. I'm going to tap it a little bit. All right, that's quite good. I don't know if you can see that. It's a little hard to see. I'm going to clean out all extra little pieces of sand that fell loose. Little pieces that fall off the side. It's not really much of a problem, but you don't want them inside the mold. They'll show up as a mold flasher on the outside, but we can clean that up later on after the part's molded. So there we go. We'll set this back down in there, and we're all done with the molding, making the mold. All right, we're all set to get the furnace going so we can pour some metal. Here's the, we're going to use aluminum. These are just aluminum scraps. I've got some wire that's been cut up and some pieces of just mechanical assemblies that were cut up. Here's some left over from before, just bits and pieces of aluminum. And I'll start, here's our machine. Here's our melting furnace. It's not turned on right now, so it's nice and cold. But this is our crucible. And what I'm going to start doing is loading the crucible. And I'm going to use these little pieces. What we want to do is put some pieces and maybe fill it, maybe this high. No point in making it higher because most of the heat is down here. If we can get a puddle down low going, then it makes it much easier to melt the larger pieces later on. So I'll just throw some in there. Throw enough of these pieces of wire. This is actually MIG wire. It's giant aluminum MIG wire that I got years ago, and it would take a huge MIG welder to operate this stuff. This is 3/32. Anyway, I cut it up in little pieces. We can stick it down in here. You want it fairly tight, but not so tight that when it expands it could crack the crucible. And on that note, before you go using your crucible, make sure that it's in good condition. Take a good look at it. You might want to wipe it down first with a paper towel or something, because if there's any cracks or anything on this, and the bottom were to fall out, for instance, when you pull it out of the furnace, it could really be dangerous. So these crucibles are consumable, so you got to be careful. I think that'll be good enough to get us going. And I'm going to set it in the machine. And the next thing we'll do is we'll turn on the machine. All right, so let's set up our furnace. It's cold, so I'm going to tilt it back a little bit so it's easier to see. Turn it on, and it kind of boots up. Makes a buzzing noise when it first turns on. That's fine. It's just the heat elements are cold and they're getting going. To set the temperature, you push this button, and you'll get a little cursor like underneath there. You can use this button to move it over to where you want, and you can change the temperature. I'm going to go ahead and set it back to 750, and then push this button, and it's set. Right now it's at I can't read that, but well, this is centigrade, by the way. So 750 degrees centigrade, which is, well, I guess it's about 1100 degrees or so Fahrenheit. I'd have to look on it. We have got a chart on the wall. But anyways, 28 degrees is what the chamber is right now. So I'm going to move, while it's cold, move this around. And it'll take about 40 to 45 minutes for this to heat up. So, good time to relax.
Okay.
Now we're just about ready. The temperature's up to 767, and it's a red glowing inferno in there. I'm going to add a little bit more material, and just take some pliers and go down. The nice thing about having a little puddle of aluminum already down in there is that when you drop something in, it'll land in a puddle. It won't hit the bottom of the crucible. So I'm going to put a few more things in there. And they'll melt right away. And we can check in there. Make sure you have your face shield on, looking down in here. And I found that it's not really necessary to flux aluminum. There are tablets when you're doing bigger things. There's tablets that degas the aluminum, but I wouldn't advise that in our little crucible here. I don't think, it might be kind of dangerous. But I can kind of scoop around down there. I can see a little bit of dross on the surface. And I'm going to pick that up and dump it down there on the fire brick. It's kind of how you want to set it up. This is set up such that I'm going to turn the crucible so that the pouring spout points toward my left. And so when I'm ready to pour, it'll be all set up. I'm right-handed, so I've got everything set up so I can move the crucible over here, pour it, and then pour the remainder into the ingot mold. And let me make sure this is nice and clean. Looks pretty good. I think we're all ready for a pour. So here it goes. I'll move this back in case I had to move fast. And you want to kind of keep this out there at arm's length, kind of get a feel for it. And I'll pour it as neatly as I can. Oop, there we go. I'll pour the rest back in there. That's a hot crucible. Set that back in the furnace. Close it up and then turn off the furnace. When you put the furnace away, unless you know that it's really cold, don't put it back in the cabinet, please. You could start a fire. Place the machine very carefully, wearing gloves, wearing your safety equipment, underneath the injection molding machine. I think that'd be a safe place to be. And it can get it can cool down there. You can see that this is still molten. We'll give this about, oh, I think 15 minutes or so. Harden up good. That's hot. We poured at 750 degrees for aluminum. If you're doing the copper alloys, brass, bronze, copper for instance, those are more like 1100 degrees. And when you pull that crucible out, it's glowing like a light bulb. So like I said, we have to be very, very careful with this process. There, we're starting to harden up now. Anyway, I'm going to let that sit there for about 15 minutes and we'll come back and we'll break open the mold and see what we got. All right, this has been cooling for quite a while. I guess we've given it about a half an hour to cool down. I'll move this out of the way and we'll break open the mold to see what we got. I'll sit over here in this pan. Pull off the bottom. There we go, that's the bottom. And then we'll break this out of here. And you see the sand close to the metal kind of burned a bit. And I'll push that out of there. All right. Let me get a brush and try brushing down a bit. All right, at this point, let's see if we can brush the old burned sand out of there a little bit and see what we came up with here. Looks pretty good. Still pretty warm. I'm going to rinse it off in some water. Maybe that'll help clean it up a little bit. That's our results. Pretty good. All the characters came out real nice, and that's what we'd expect. So remember, when you put the oven away, do not put it in the cabinet. Put it underneath the injection molding machine. There's a nice green shelf down there you can set it on. And then on cleaning up this stuff, you can discard the this is cool enough now I don't have to wear gloves. You can discard the old brown, the burn stuff, and then just put the good red stuff back in the container. So we'll sort all that out. And that's it. Thank you.